Hey there, and welcome to another Soundtrap walkthrough. The best way to learn from these videos is to view, pause, and imitate. View means watch what is being demonstrated in the video without copying at the same time. It's important to keep your attention on the concept being explained and demonstrated. When this screen comes up, you can pause the video. The concepts just explained will be listed on the screen, so while the video is paused, you can then imitate and explore the concept which was just shown. Alright, let's begin with another Soundtrap walkthrough. Hey there, and welcome to our Soundtrap tutorial on how to make a beat. In this tutorial, we're going to look at specifically at how to make our own beat, rather than just using loops which have beats that are already made. Now, before we start getting into making our own beat, what I want to do is actually just show you the difference between some of the loops, just to maybe make things a little bit clearer about what we're actually doing today. So let's go over here to our loops, which is the normal place where we get our drum sounds. And I've just done a search here for drums. You can see here we've got heaps and heaps of loops, and if we listen to them, we can sample them and all that kind of stuff. But what I actually want to do is I want to show you this little icon here next to the text. So you'll see that some of them are some little shapes which look like a waveform, and some of them look like some music notes. So let me just make it a bit clearer about what is going on here. So let's pick one of these ones with that little waveform picture. I'm just going to go maybe basic verse 1. So I'm going to double click that and it's going to load it into the song. So there it is, it's already playing. So let's actually have a look at what's happening here. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So you can see here, it's got this shape, and in previous videos, we've talked about this shape being a waveform, which means it's the picture of the sound. So the higher the shape is, the spike, the louder it is, and the smaller the shape is, the softer it is. So this is what we've normally been using, and when it's a loop like this, it means that it's actually been recorded from a proper drum kit, or it's a proper sound that's been recorded, and you can't really change it too much. You can add effects to it, and you can do things like reversing it and stuff like that, but you can't really get in there and change specifically what the notes are, or you can't change what the drum sounds are. Okay, so any loop over here that has the waveform next to it, that means it's a waveform type of loop. Okay, now you might notice these other ones that I just pointed out before. These ones here with these little music notes. Let's have a look what's going on here. So if I drag it across, so you can see here, it actually looks quite different. Rather than having this waveform, you can see that it's actually got these little dots. Some are stretched out a little bit more than others, but it's mostly just these dots. Let's have a listen first, just to see the difference. So if we have a listen to the waveform one, just sounds like a drum kit. If we have a listen to the acoustic trap, so it's still just a drum kit, so it's still producing just sounds, but there's something going on differently. So what this is actually doing is this is using a pattern from the beat maker instead. So if I actually double click on this, you can see that it brings me into the beat maker. Don't worry about this. If this comes up, you can just push quantize. So what's actually happening now is it's actually giving you control of all of the separate drum sounds. So if I go to the start here, let me just tidy up the screen a little bit. If I go to the start and play that, you can see there that we're following along with the pattern, and we can actually see what notes are being played at different places, and we can actually see what drum sounds are happening. So let me just show you an example of what's going on here. If I just click and drag and add all these other boxes, I'm going to explain the boxes in a minute, but if I click and drag all over those boxes, you see that it has now changed. It looks really different. Let's just kind of destroy some of these as well. And if you remember what it sounded like before, let's have a listen to what it is now. So the beat's totally destroyed, or maybe you like that beat, that's fine. But what's happening now is we've changed the beat directly in the beat maker here. And that's what we're going to look at today, rather than just using the waveform ones here. And if I just close this, and if I go back to the waveform, if I double click on this, nothing happens. I can't actually go into it and I can't change it. If you go and click on the waveform here, you can only add effects to it. Whereas if you go into the drum one here and go to patterns, There we go. Or you can just double click on it. That'll work as well. You can actually go in here and change what's happening. So there's a bit of an explanation about what's actually happening here. You can either have, when you're looking for loops, you can either have waveform loops or beatmaker loops. When you're looking for drums, we're going to be looking just at the beatmaker loops today. So let's start with a brand new file here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our own pattern. To do this, I'm going to go to Patterns and Beatmaker. This is one of the ways you can do it, but it's the easiest. So if you just hover your mouse over and you click on it, and straight away you can see here that the Beatmaker comes up. Now, because we've got a brand new pattern that we're making, it doesn't have any boxes at the moment. So let's have a look here. To begin with, we've got these numbers. Now, what these numbers are referring to, and if I scroll along, you can see all the numbers here. They're actually referring to the bar. Now, a bar is a group of counts. It's normally a group of 4 counts or 4 beats. So it's a group of beats, and it actually is already up here at the top. So this is what these numbers here, these aren't seconds. These are what bar we are up to. Okay, so if I've got number 1 here, it actually adds to number 1 here. If you see, as I drag my, let me just zoom in a little bit. When I drag the playback marker, you can actually see down here, the little dot is actually moving at the same time. So that shows you what beat you're up to. If I go to the 2, we're all just on the 2 right there. So now we're at the second bar. If I drag it across, it disappears, but let's just go across the 3rd bar here. And then if I drag it across, you can go to the 4th bar. Okay, so that's what's happening there. But just to keep it really easy, what we're going to do is we're just going to make a beat just in the 1st bar. Now, to make it really easy to figure out what is happening here, we're actually going to grab the cycle bar up here. So if you click on it a couple of times, it'll go purple. Remember, this loops the song around just a small part of it. I'm going to grab the cycle bar from the right. I'm going to drag it all the way down. And if you actually notice, when I dragged it down to the 2, so I'm just going to drag it back and forth. If you look down at the pattern maker, the beat maker, you can actually see that that's adjusting at the same time as well. So it's actually showing you how much you are looping at the moment, or how much you're going to cycle. So at the moment now, the 2 and the 3, it's all kind of grayed out, which means it's not active. And we're going to turn cycle mode on here as well. I think it's already active. Yeah, it is. So if I turn that back on again, you'll see cycle turns on and these gray out. So now when I play it from the start, you can see the dot moving across, but rather than going to 2 and 3 and 4, it just stays on number 1 the whole time. So let me just recap what I did there really quickly. The cycle mode was all the way to the 9, I think. So I've dragged it back and I've only got it on 1 bar. So from the 1 to the 2, I've turned it on so it's purple. You can turn it on by clicking on it. And I've just made sure down here that cycle mode is colored up, okay? So that's all I've done for that. So let's have a look what we've got here. So I said that a bar is a group of 4 beats. Well, if you have a look, you can actually see that there's 4 groups here of blocks all put together. So each of these blocks is a whole beat. Now so we've got 4 beats in this bar, and the beat starts right at the first box, but then it's got some things that we call subdivisions, and these are just a division of the beat, and we've got 4 of those as well. So there's lots of, it might be a little bit confusing, there's lots of groups of 4 here, but the main thing that you want to think about is here's the first beat, and then we've got our little subdivisions, then we've got our second beat here, and then we've got our third beat, and then we've got our 4th beat. And then if we go to bar 2, it just starts again. So we've got our first beat, our second beat, our 3rd beat, and 4th beat. If you're scratching your head thinking, I've got no idea what this guy's talking about, that's fine, because as soon as I start playing some sounds, I guarantee you it's going to start to make a bit more sense. So what we can do to make beats is really as simple as just choosing a box, clicking on it, and it will make a sound. We've got our instruments down here that you can choose. We're going to talk about them more in depth in a couple of moments. But otherwise, you just click on some boxes. Let's just click on some random ones. And if I play that from the start, oh, that sounds pretty good already. That was just random too. So you can hear there, straight away I've already got a beat, all right? But what we're going to do is we're going to do one step at a time, slowly building this beat up. Now, I've added boxes by clicking on the box. To get rid of a box, you just click on it again. And here's another little shortcut. If you want to fill in a whole line, what you can actually do is click and hold the mouse down and drag it, and it will actually add heaps and heaps of boxes really, really quickly. So if you just click and drag, you can do that, and you can actually do the same to get rid of them as well. All right, let's start by building a beat. So what we're going to do is let's look at the kick drum first. Now, the kick drum is the bass drum. This is the heartbeat of your pattern. Pretty much every beat has a bass drum, and it builds the foundation for it. Now, there's a couple of suggestions of where you can put bass drums. Bass drums love being on beat 1, and they love being on beat 3 as well. These are really, really good places to put them. So we've got one on beat 1 and beat 3. I just want to remind you, the number 1 at the top is not the beat number, it's the bar number. They haven't put the beat numbers in here. I kind of wish they had, but they haven't. But you can just see it by having a look at which block we're in. So here's block 1, here's block 2, here's block 3, and here's block 4. So we've got beat at the start of beat 1 and the start of beat 3. So bass drums love beat 1 and 3. Let's have a listen to that. That sounds okay. And what you can also do is you can add some other ones on the other beats if you like. So you can always fill them in. Let's have a listen to what that sounds like. Yeah, that sounds cool. And what you can also do is you can put bass drums leading in or after the 1 and 3. So if I put one just here, this beat is going to lead into this one here. And if I put one just here, this one will lead into this one here. So I'm just leading into it. Let's have a listen to what that sounds like. Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. So you can have a play around with just putting some bass drums in some different places. Okay, the snare drum. Now, the snare drum loves bouncing off the kick drum or the bass drum. So after you've put a kick drum, it's a good idea to put a snare drum after that kick drum. So the best places to put snare drums are on beats 2 and beat 4. Let's just have a listen first what that sounds like. So you can hear that we've got our really, really basic rock beat or pop beat. But now what you can do is you can start to add in a couple of other things to make it a bit more interesting. So if you remember last time we had a look at the kick drum, we put some other ones on every beat. Let's have a listen to what that sounds like. That sounds pretty good. And remember, we put some in leading into the bass drum as well. This is where it's going to start to sound really cool. So let's maybe put a lead in here. And let's have a listen to what that sounds like. Yeah, that sounds cool. And you can even just, let's put another lead in here. And if you experiment, I'm going to move this one just a block across and have a listen to what that sounds like. So you could, so I moved this one here. Now I said before that bass drums love beat 3. That's fine, but if you just kind of tweak it a little bit, yeah, the rules are there only as a guide. None of this is really, really hard and fast rules. They're just a guide. So if you just move it across, that sounds really cool. That's one of my favorite ones. Okay, and the last one we're going to have a look at is the cymbals, and in particular the hi-hat. Now we've got some other sounds here, rim shot and snare too. You might have some other ones as well, maybe like open hi-hat, but we're going to get rid of those. So to get rid of the rim shot, you just click it here, and the snare, we're going to get rid of that there. So the only sounds I want now are the kick, the snare, and the hi-hat closed. In the second part of this video, so the next video, I'm going to talk more about these instruments, but for the moment, I'm just going to use these three. If you accidentally deleted one of these ones that we need, you can click add, it will appear, and then you just click on the little arrow, and then you can find the sound that we want. But for the moment, I'm just going to close that one. So the hi-hat closed. Now this is the sound that really gives the song momentum. So what these do, these are always faster than all the other sounds. So what we're going to do is we're going to zip these. Let's just fill in every count. Let's have a listen what that sounds like. So you can hear that cymbal is really giving the song momentum, the pattern momentum, and it's leading it, it's driving it across to each beat. You could slow down that momentum, so maybe if I just put it on every second one, let's have a listen what that sounds like. So there's a really basic pop beat. And then you can play around with little patterns too. So maybe I could do a group of 3 here and a group of 3 here. You just experiment with it and see what you like. Let's try that. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Keep playing around with the cymbal. And then once you've got that, don't forget you can change these other ones, so the kick and snare as well. So let's just start to move some of these things around. Let's find some different beats. Hey, I really like the sound of that. So there you go. You can see there that what I've done is I've just played around with some things. I've changed a couple of the rules a little bit that are just guidelines, and I've come up with a beat that I really like. And we're just using 3 really basic sounds at the moment. We're using our kick drum, we're using our snare drum, and we're using our closed hi-hat at the moment. Now, the last thing I want to quickly show you is you might be thinking, oh yeah, I like my beat, but I don't like the drum kit that I've got. So what you can actually do here is if you go up to this, this selection up here, you can see that it comes up with drums, and then it's got 3 different types: kits, machines, and processed. So kits are just normal basic drum kits. So let's pick maybe just clean black, and you can actually click on this, and it will give you a little example of what it will sound like. So let's have a listen what our drum kit sounds like with the clean black. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. You can actually just click the arrow, you can go to the next one. Or you can go to machines, which are more kind of electronic ones. Let's see if there's some crazy stuff in here. Hey, I like that one. Let's have a listen what that sounds like. Wow, so it's a drum kit, but it's a really different sounding one. Yeah, so there you go. So there is a way to make your own beats. Now, we've made this beat at the moment, but what we can actually do is if I go to up here to the loop part. So I'm in the top right corner. It's really important you go to the top. If you go down to the bottom, it's not, this trick is not going to work. So I'm at the top right corner. I'm going to click and drag, and do you notice what's happening at the top and bottom of our screen? So as I drag, I'm actually making my loop longer. I'm making it my pattern go for longer in the song, but you can see down the bottom here as well, it's actually stretching it out. So then if I stretch it out to here, if I turn off cycle mode, so now you can see that my pattern is actually continuing through the song. And now I've made my beat longer. So there you go, guys. That is how to make a beat on your own. And then from here, you could add all your other things. So you could go in and you could add some bass loops, or you could add some synth loops, some piano loops, whatever you like. But that gives you heaps more freedom to be able to make sounds that maybe if you know the sort of drum beat that you want, you can hear it in your head, but you can't find it exactly. Well, now you can make it yourself, which is going to give you so much more freedom in the songs that you make. And thanks for watching another Soundtrap walkthrough. If you enjoyed this video, you can like and subscribe. And why not check out some of our other Soundtrap walkthrough videos.